Well, welcome everybody. I think the first thing that you'll notice is we're not in our usual spot. This doesn't look like a wood shop behind me, does it? Well, and that's because we have a special video today that we get to do with a new friend of ours. And I'd like to introduce her first. This is Lynn.
Hi.
And she is from Soft Squares. And that is not a woodworking company. It's actually a quilting company.
Yeah.
And let's let Lynn introduce herself really quickly before we describe what we're going to do here today.
I am Lynn. I am a quilter. I am a YouTube content creator, and I have an online quilt store. And I do live sales. We do specialty boxes, and I'm all over social media under Soft Squares.
And I'm really happy. Lynn is a new friend of mine, and so this is something that's kind of fun. And why are we doing this? Well, the reason is that I have been making router base plates and tools for woodworkers for a good long time. And this Christmas, my mom came down to visit me, and she was looking at the things that I made, and she said, well, that's an awful lot like what people do for quilting. And she said, you ought to be making some of those for quilters as well. And I said, that sounds like a great idea. I have no idea about anything about quilting. And so Lynn is here today to actually teach me, an old woodworker, to see if I can learn how to do the quilting, and then maybe we can make some interesting things that will help quilters and woodworkers alike out.
So he's going to get a tutorial on how to quilt, and we are going to make a project that incorporates both of our worlds.
And like all my videos where I show my mistakes, I think you're going to see a lot of them here.
I think you'll be better than you think you are.
Okay, Lynn, I know we're about to get started, and I wanted to be prepared, so I brought some of the tools that I knew we were going to need. Now, obviously, with woodworking and with quilting, we have to do measuring and cutting, and then we put things together, right?
Right.
So, if we're going to be measuring, we need a tape measure, so I brought that.
Yes, yes.
If we need to have straight angles, we have to use a quick square, so I brought that too. And obviously, if we're going to be cutting, we need something sturdy for that. What do you think?
I think that is awesome, but they're kind of industrial. They're not pretty.
Well, they're not pretty, but they're useful.
They could be. I don't know. Ladies, would you want to use this? Okay, we have tools that are probably easier to use with quilting, that are very similar. So we're gonna try using those tools, but you're right. These are all things that you could use in quilting if you're in a pinch.
All right. You're the expert. I'll put these away.
All right. All right. So this is the tape measure that we're used to seeing, something a little softer, retractable. It doesn't really matter, but we go up to 120 inches. This was a 60 inch. How big does your tape measure go?
25 feet.
Oh, well, you win. We don't go things that big. So anyway, we do need tape measure. We do need a cutting tool. This is a blade, right? But this is easier because it's rotary and our fingers can be kept out of the way. And then what was the other one that you had? You had a ruler. This is one of my many rulers. And of course, it's not the easiest to see because it's clear. But we like clear because then we can see through it and we can see our project and what we're working on. And we also need a cutting mat. So we're going to take all these things, put them together. And Jared, I think we should make a clock.
Okay.
How do you feel about that? So
I'm up to making anything.
This is a clock that was a project in the Advent box that I did for 2024. It was one of the projects. And a lot of you had asked, a lot of the quilters had asked about numbers on them. So when Jared and I were talking, found out he can put numbers on these. So we're going to actually play with his plate that has the numbers on it.
So here's my version of that. It does have a paper backing on it, but it will become clear in the end.
Yep.
But this is what I think I can help offer, is to be able to create things with the acrylic that you have there, but also using some of the tools of the shop.
We're going to make a very simple quilt block. So we're teaching Jared how to quilt. I have a feeling you have probably sewn a few stitches before, right? You little bit.
A little bit. I grew up in a sewing family. I just, my mom, I'm not quite sure how my mom is going to receive this video, honestly. I think she's going to be happy on one hand that I'm learning to do this.
And sad
And
that
I
she's not the one
think the
teaching.
other hand, and she's going to be like, why did you not learn this from me all those years ago?
Oh, guess what? There's so much to quilting. She will skip lots of time opportunity to teach you some
there's
things.
more.
Yes. Oh, there's so much more. It's an ongoing thing. We're always learning. All right. So just so you know, this is a 9-inch square clock. So we're going to make a quilt block that is 9 by 9. And what better way to do that than to use a layer cake? So this right here is a 10 by 10 inch square. Layer cakes are pre-cuts. A lot of ladies in the quilting world know this, and guys too, by the way. But this is basically a little of everything from a collection.
So my first task was to pick 3 colors. Valentine's Day is coming up, and what I'm making here is a clock I'm going to give to my wife for Valentine's Day. Which is why you see those set of heart templates to the left of the screen as well. Those are items that I also had made in my shop and brought in for this particular project. Lynne had some great suggestions in terms of what my particular skills could actually produce here. The overall look that we're going for is this purple background with some corners in another color and then some applique hearts put onto the top. Once I had selected the colors, our first task was to create the corners of the piece.
So this is our background. We're not going to cut this down just yet because we want to trim it when we're done to make sure it is the size of the acrylic.
Okay.
So we're going to leave this how it is. We're going to snowball, is what it's called, the corners. So what you're going to do is you're going to have basically, not that big, but pink corners all around them.
Yep. Now I'm new to this, so I'm going to speed up the video a bit compared to the amount of time it took me to learn this. But let me see if I can recap it. The first thing to do is to mark the diagonal using a pin on the back of the little squares. Then you pin the squares facing upside down into the corners. Believe it or not, it took me probably 4 tries to get the first pin in without twisting the fabric some. We then take the pinned in fabric over to the sewing machine and just sew those diagonals following the line that I drew. This might sound strange to those of you who are accomplished sewers, but it was easier for me to sew this by thinking about it as though I was working with a bandsaw. And yes, this sewing machine had to be taken all the way down to the full turtle mode to keep me from messing anything up. Once all 4 corners were sewn into place, I got to use the rotary cutter to trim off the excess fabric. And that's all there was to the sewing for the 4 corners, but it turned out there was one more step.
All right, so we don't need this at the moment. So what we're going to do, once that's done, is we're going to actually press it open. And there is a rule, press to the dark side. Have you heard that before?
Press to the dark side?
Yep.
Star Wars, okay.
Yep. And so the reason for that is when you press, if this was white and this is dark, right now both are dark, it doesn't matter, but you would see through the lighter fabric the bunch of the fabric underneath.
There's a little extra that'll be underneath.
And it's something called setting a seam, where you just put your iron on the seam before you do anything with it, and it makes it super flat. So press just like that. And then this, when you're done, is where you would put the clapper and let it sit, and it cools while you move on to the next thing.
And as it turned out, the next thing was to do applique hearts. And this is actually the byproduct of what I make for woodworkers. So what we would normally do is we'd be interested in the outside of this, and we would take our routers and, create an inlay of wood that we would stick into a piece. And it was this that my mom saw and was like, well, that's something that quilters would use all the time. And so I took these over, and these are ones I just already created, and for the quilter's sake, I added these marks of diagonals and straight up and down for the centers.
Nice.
So
nice.
Here we go.
So what I think we should do is we're going to put a heart. You can do more than one, just kind of play with it, and whatever size you want. And if you want to do more than one, we can do that. The only thing that's for me is to stay away from the very center as far as a line.
Right.
Because of the hole for the clock mechanism.
So I fumbled around for a little bit till I found a pattern I liked. Let's try that.
Okay, so let's push this to the side. We are going to fuse it, put fusible on the back of this, and then we're going to press it onto here. So we're going to use this light steam seam.
All right, so we have the backing on here now. We just need to iron it on permanently, and then we'll cut it out.
Yep, and you want to just hold it instead of moving it around.
Which I did, and then I flipped it over, and using the scissors, I followed the lines I had traced to cut out the hearts. Probably easier than when I do it with a bandsaw.
I bet it is, actually. Yep. Okay, so now you get to peel the backing off and place these anywhere you want.
A step that is easier said than done. So, marshaling all of my creative faculties, I tried a bunch of little layouts here until I found one that I liked, and I pressed them all into place.
And it's good just to make sure everything is actually down. And it looks like it is.
Good.
Good, good. Okay, so that's our block. Now we're going to quilt it.
And quilting, I learned in this case, was simply to attach one layer of batting to the back. The back to this particular quilt is actually just the acrylic of the clock, so we don't have any other fabric to attach. I cut the batting down to the appropriate size. Then once again, using the heart-shaped templates that I brought over, I took a pen that would wash off and marked where I wanted to put the stitching to attach the cloth to the backing. That gave me the guide to take over to the sewing machine, which was still set to turtle speed, but I've sped the video up 8 times to make it look like I know what I'm doing. There were 4 trim cuts left to do, and once those were done, the work in the sewing room was complete.
Yeah, so that I like it. So you're going to take it back to your woodworking studio to finish this, right?
Yeah, it looks so good as it is right now. I almost feel bad putting anything else on top of it.
I like it.
But I'm sure this has to do with the teacher more than the student, but this turned out a little bit better in terms of like all of the stitches than I thought it would be.
Oh, you did great.
Thank you.
And you did several stitches. You did quilting, you did applique, which didn't require stitching, and then you did top stitching or quilting. Actually, this is piecing, sorry, and this is actual quilting, and that is applique. You did 3 different techniques today.
Fantastic. It was fun, actually.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate all of this. I hope everybody who watched this got to have a little fun, because I certainly did. And I wanted to thank Lynne for everything she did to help me out here. So I made my version of a quilt right here. We got our different patterns and everything.
All the mitered corners.
Wood grain. and I took it to the laser cutter and I engraved your Soft Squares logo into there. So
I love it.
I hope you can enjoy that.
Yes, thank you very much. And we're going to hang it. You guys will see this in the background on some of the videos. Yep. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. And I look forward to working with you. So we're going to let you guys know of some future projects where he's making things that can help us as quilters out. So you will know who...
I may have contributed in one way, but I think the skill will come from Lynne.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.